Yeah, thanks very much to the conveners for putting this together. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk about our partnership today. I'll be taking a slightly different tack. Most of the people coming before have talked about, what we should communicate, how we should communicate about it. And within this talk, I'm going to be talking a little bit about us, the communicators, and what happens to us when we engage in projects like this. So the project I'm talking about is the Polar Learning and Responding Climate Change Education Partnership. This is one of 6 partnerships that were supported or are supported by the National Science Foundation. And we each have a 5-year grant. Billy Spitzer is the lead on one of them. I'm leading this one, and then Raluca Ellis will be giving the presentation after me, and she's leading another one. The Alliance Office, led by Gail, is coordinating and leveraging investments from all of these different, all of the 6 projects, as well as connecting with other activities like the work that Tamara was talking about earlier on. Our mission for the Polar Partnership is to engage with lifelong learners through novel educational methods. This includes games, working with data, face-to-face camps, working with leaders. And we're using the fascination with the polar regions as kind of the focal point for this engagement. We have a large number of partners and collaborators. We have about 16 to 19 people who form the core of the project, and they're what we call the polar leads. And we, talk regularly, but, we're working with a large number of different institutions, and not only are they located geographically in different places, but they also have different missions. So all the way from formal education to informal education, from university settings to museums, to research institutions like Lamont Doherty Earth Observatory. We're also covering a really wide range. So we have what we're calling a strategic portfolio, where we've identified what our communication goals are, and then what is the best match in terms of the educational method to reach people. So we want to go all the way from raising awareness about changes in the polar regions to informing decisions about what to do about this, where you can go to learn more, different actions that you might want to take. We're also ranging from the classroom to the general public. So some of them are much more, the approaches are much more targeted for the classroom, others for the general public. What we're seeing is that once you develop one for one setting, it's really easy actually to adapt it and adopt it for use in another type of setting. And we're also ranging from low tech to high tech. And just on this score, we're running a session this Thursday that some of you might be interested in. It's called Integrating Serious Gaming into Climate Change Education. It's at the Marriott in Golden Gate C2 from 1 to 4. And this is in collaboration with Juliet Rooney Varga and also with Michelle Hall, who are also very interested in serious games as an alternate mode of engagement with the public and also through schools. Now, turning to the who, so you can see that there's quite a few of us. We're at different institutions. The institutions have different missions, and we're tackling a wide range of approaches. And the who that forms the core of this are climate scientists, experts in the learning sciences, as well as practitioners from within formal and informal education venues. And this was required in the solicitation that the National Science Foundation put together that we responded to. And what they said was that this combination of expertise is intended to foster innovative, transdisciplinary advances in climate change education. So I'll get to the innovative in just a second. The transdisciplinary, I've been working for a long time as an environmental educator, as an interdisciplinary researcher, and one of the things that as a co-PI of an Advancing Women in the Sciences grant, together with Robin Bell, who's one of our leads on this project, we were working with advancing women in the sciences and thinking about how we can build the skill sets. And what we realized is that issues that women were facing are very similar to issues that interdisciplinary scholars are facing. And so I did quite a bit of research back during the time that I was an advanced PI. Just recently, I went back to take a look at that research about what the issues are that interdisciplinary scholars and educators face. And it hasn't seemed to have gotten much better. The new research on this continues to show that there's potential for interdisciplinary research to disadvantage those who conduct it, and employers who are interested in expanding the research on interdisciplinary fronts should realize that there are obstacles for interdisciplinary scholars, and they actually this was a dissertation, and actually called out funding agencies, and they said, if you want to support interdisciplinary projects, you should recognize that promoting this kind of work may affect the individuals who pursue it. So this is, a pretty stark warning, and there's a large number of studies, both in the US and in Europe, that have shown very similar findings. Interestingly, it seems not to be true anymore in biology, but in all the other disciplines that they look at, this seems to be the case, that you disadvantage the career trajectory of people pursuing interdisciplinary work. So what we thought we should do is that we should take a look at our team, and we should ask our team, what do you perceive as the effects and effectiveness of the interdisciplinary model? How is it working for you? And what is the value to you of collaboration in the Polar project? So we did a survey 10 months into phase 2. We had been working together for phase 1 for 2 years, but this was phase 2. This was the implementation side of the project. And we have responses from 14 of the 16 who we asked for to fill out the survey, which I'll be showing you results of in just a sec. I do want to just, this was, 10 months into the project, and we're now 2.5 years into it. And so we have been recognized as innovative. So on that front, we're doing really well. So, one of our PIs got the stage prize for junior faculty achievement. We won an innovation and entrepreneurship competition at the Columbia Business School. We have a Webby nomination, we didn't get it, but we were nominated as one of only 5 in the category. We won the most inspirational research project at Games Learning Society Conference, and at the recent MIT Collab, we got the Judge's Choice Award in the most competitive category, which was number 1 of 63 submissions. So we are being recognized on many fronts and in many different venues as being innovative. So what about us as a partnership? So one of the things we wanted to do was we wanted to find out, NSF said that they wanted this balanced portfolio, are we indeed balanced? And you can't get much more balanced than that. We were really happy to see this result. It could be with all the different missions that, it could have been skewed one way or the other, and it still would have been fine, but this was just really interesting to see that people spent 27% of their time on climate science, 20% on learning science, 25% on formal education, and 28% on informal education. But what was really interesting is when you look at the individual partners and you see how much time they spent. And what you see is that there's one person who spent time in only one area, and one person who spent time, I think, in only 2 areas. So A was 1 area and H was 2 areas. The rest of them split their time between 3 to 4 different areas. So our team is very, open and engaged on a wide number of fronts. We thought that that was a really interesting finding, and that, I think, contributes to the success of the partnership. And it was one of the reasons, frankly, why we engaged in this from the very beginning. We invited people to participate, and people responded to, in terms of participation, because they were very interested in crossing these borders. What's neat, if you look at a network analysis, so this is all the individuals around in the red nodes, and then the blue nodes are, climate science, learning science, formal ed, and informal ed. There's 2 individuals who are asking advice from two of the different nodes. So presumably they have expertise in one, and they're asking advice for 2 others. All the rest are asking advice in 3 to 4 different areas. So here they are reaching out to the partnership and seeking advice and interacting on all these different fronts. And so we think this shows a very rich, collaborative and interactive partnership. Another thing that we wanted to do, I told you that I had done this research on, it was with Diana Roten, who's a social scientist, on interdisciplinary ways of working, prompted by my work on the Advanced Project. And what we found back then, in 2007 when we published this, was that people tend to work on interdisciplinarity from 4 different approaches. So one is cross-fertilization. So this is within your own brain. You're making connections. Team collaboration, that's what a partnership is all about, is working together and sharing expertise. Field creation is actually trying to tackle something that's at the intersection of two different fields. And then problem orientation is working with stakeholders. So we asked our participants in the partnership how much time they spent in all the areas. And you can see, this was a surprise to us, they spent almost equal time in the different areas. The largest number is team collaboration. 31% of their time was spent there, which makes sense. 26% in problem orientation, working with stakeholders. So that also makes sense, given our mission. But we also had 21% in cross-fertilization. So this is, trying to educate yourself and trying to borrow from different fields in your own brain. And then this field creation, actually working deliberately at the intersection of the fields. Again, the individuals, this was really interesting, that they all spanned 3 of the fields. And 3 of the different approaches. And so we're working in very diverse ways. And some people say that you often start with the cross-fertilization, where you conceptualize the idea yourself and then you move out. But in our case, it looks like people are kind of moving back and forth between the different approaches as they tackle different aspects of the project. We'll be looking more into that. Another thing we said is, where are you in terms of thinking about ongoing and future collaboration? So already people have, even 10 months into the project, engaged with new projects similar to this one. 4 of the 14 mentioned that, and then 9 said they were likely to do this. In terms of new collaborations with colleagues within my field of study, again, 4 have already, this has already occurred for 4 of them, and 8 more say that it's likely to occur. New collaborations with colleagues outside of my field of study, there's fewer that were doing this already, but, and there's more who say that this is not likely to happen. And then publishing and presenting outside of my typical field of study. 2 had already, at 10 months, had already started doing this. 6 said that they were likely to, and then 5 thought that this might be, going too far. The polar partnership, so one of the things that we asked were, what were the, personal, professional, and institutional benefits that you've experienced. And this goes back again to my work with the Advanced Project, which showed that, the personal is often intersects with the professional and the institutional, and often you just ask about one of these elements when in fact they're all intertwined. So personally, people said that they had increased enthusiasm about sharing this quality information with the public. The polar regions, some of the educators had not experienced with the polar regions before, and increased satisfaction with their own work and a feeling of camaraderie. They also professionally, they're making connections with new colleagues, and they have the confidence to explain their work and talk about it with others outside of their field. And institutionally, this was interesting, that many of them found that their institutions were actually very excited about their work on this project and saw it as a bonus. The negatives people talked about was the fact that we had so many things going on that they didn't feel connected with everything at 10 months in. We've been working on that in our partnership meetings, and it's been sort of a natural evolution. We'll be redoing the survey again, and we are very interested to see what the changes how the changes will unfold. And just I'll leave you with 2 quotes that I thought were really interesting. So one was, it brought me into contact with new people, and then the other thing is that the new people were creative and motivated and had the same values and basically were linked to the same mission, and they found this to be really excited. Thank you.